The Nintendo 64 marked a turning point for Nintendo, gaming, and pulp culture. It was the first Nintendo console to sell less than its competitors, but also the device that closed off the millennium by introducing 3D gaming to mainstream audiences. Looking back, the Nintendo 64 didn't have a large run of games, hitting a measly mark of 296 release games in North America through its lifespan. That's less than 50% the number of games both the NES and SNES released. To look back at the N64's library today is to look back at one of the ugliest eras in gaming. The early 3D games with basic polygon models did not age well compared to the more charming 8-bit and 16-bit style of its predecessors. Nevertheless, after talking with the Nintendo community for years, here are what I deem to be the Nintendo 64's 64 best games, whether by design or nostalgia, broken down into 8 top 8 lists, because symmetry matters. Number 8, Quest 64. I know some of you will say, hey, this is an RPG, not an adventure game. And yes, I agree. However, there just weren't enough RPGs to make a top 8 RPG list, so here it is in the adventure bucket. Quest 64 is one of those games that's here more so for nostalgia than for design. It was the first RPG title in North America on the N64 and had some interesting mechanics to offer. For example, there was no money or experience point system. Instead, the game beefed up whatever you used more often. The more you used Earth spells, for example, the stronger they became. The game was quite easy for an RPG veteran, which is another reason I'm bidding it more for the fan of adventure games. It may not have been a hidden gem, but Quest 64 is worth a look for anyone exploring the N64 library. Number 7, Yoshi's Story. We'll probably never know what the Yoshis are singing in this theme song, but it does sound pretty scrotum-like, doesn't it? I'd argue that Yoshi's Story was the defining moment that the Yoshi franchise would go on to take an extra cute tone in future game releases. It was a relatively easy 2.5D platformer that used the now well-known Yoshi egg toss mechanic. It wasn't anything spectacular, but a solid entry in the library that any fan of Yoshi should give a try. Number 6, Harvest Moon 64. Before Stardew Valley, we had Harvest Moon, a series dedicated to simulating life on the farm. Harvest Moon 64 was the third entry to the franchise. The game had you inheriting your grandfather's farm. Then, as you would expect, you need to fix up the farm, plant crops, harvest them, sell them for money to invest back into the farm, and so on. It's a fairly straightforward system that offers a great sense of progress and reward. This entry was also the first to introduce the mechanic of dating and marrying a partner. Due to its art style, it's also one of the Nintendo 64 games that have aged better than most. Number 5, Ogre Battle 64, Person of Lordly Caliber. If you're into real-time strategy games, Ogre Battle 64 was a must-play. It was the third entry in the franchise and boasted an amazing soundtrack and great gameplay. In fact, the game was re-released on both the Wii and Wii U Virtual Console and makes for a great pickup at a reasonable price. If you've played an RTS before, you know what to expect here. Organize your units, enter battles, take turns moving and attacking individual units, and so on. Tie it all up with a captivating storyline though, and you've got a solid winner for a top title on the N64. Number 4, Paper Mario. The SNES title Super Mario RPG introduced us to the idea of the Mario franchise as an RPG, and it was a huge hit. Paper Mario would be the transitional title that would solidify a Mario RPG series for many Nintendo consoles to come. Luckily, Paper Mario retains some of the great battle mechanics seen in the previous Mario RPG title. Unfortunately, characters such as Geno and Mallow are nowhere to be found, but the game still introduces many new characters and locales while keeping all the key Mario characters. Paper Mario had a refreshing artwork for its time, unique story, and fun gameplay mechanics. This is another classic that aged very well decades later and is worth revisiting for any Mario fan. Number 3, Goemon's Great Adventure. Goemon's Great Adventure, or Mystical Ninja 2 starring Goemon if you're in Europe, was a true treat to play with great visuals, humor, and tight gameplay. The intro and outro had Japanese voice acting, something N64 carts couldn't afford to have too much of due to space limitations. More importantly, however, is how fun and fluid the gameplay was. Like Yoshi's story, the game was a 2.5D platformer with a jump run attack mechanic. Unfortunately, this would be the last time Western audiences would ever see a Goemon game, but given its legacy and the IP revivals we're seeing on the Switch, perhaps we'll see the series return soon. Also, side note that this game had one of the best game over screens ever. Number 2, The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. To be honest, I've never enjoyed games with time constraints. It always added a level of stress and anxiety that I just didn't need in my gaming sessions. So when Majora's Mask was announced, it was a big nope for me at first. After some time I would finally get over it and pick up the title to give it a go, and it did not disappoint. While time was a major component to the game, it was done in a very clever way that encouraged players to plan and make the best use of this new finite resource, time. The game retained the mechanic that made Ocarina of Time so great and added a much darker tone to the Zelda franchise, something we wouldn't see again until Twilight Princess. It was one of the best adventure games on the console, second only to one other title. Number 1, The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. To no one's surprise, Zelda Ocarina of Time is my number 1 pick for the best Nintendo 64 adventure game. Ocarina of Time took the Zelda franchise to a whole new level by introducing 3D exploration as well as 3D combat. The Kingdom of Hyrule felt bigger than ever, the music was more iconic, and the rough polygon model characters were lively enough to make us laugh and shed a few tears. Aside the main story, there was just so much to do, from fun side quests such as upgrading the Bigoron sword, your health, or the hunt for 100 gold Skulltulas. Furthermore, the game proved the test of time by being re-released over 20 years later and still being just as memorable. And that completes one set of top 8 games in my list of 64 best titles for the Nintendo 64. Were there any adventure games I missed that would be on your top 8 list? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more of the best Nintendo 64 titles. Get in or get out. Oh man, it's been over 20 years that I've been pronouncing Gold Skulltulas the wrong way. I've been pronouncing it as Gold Skulltulas. Skulltulas!